As you probably caught on, I've had a camera guy working with me for a while, and he also helps me with a lot of the woodworking. He made a comment the other day that he was surprised at how much we use a few objects in the shop that he wouldn't normally associate with woodworking at all. And I thought to myself, man, that's almost a really good YouTube video title. So we need to make that video, and hopefully it's of some help to you. I think it will be. So the idea was it's like these piddly things that you don't normally associate with a wood shop, but are really, really handy to have. And they all fit in this box, almost. So we're gonna start with the one I tried to fake fitting in the box that actually doesn't. I'm sorry, that's the only lie here. A compact vacuum, like or just a regular shop vac. A compact battery one is super handy, but I have the big dust collector, which is great for the machines, but a little shop vac that you can take around and clean up where sawdust accumulates around your machines and tools, or when you're doing projects and you need to come back and vacuum it off before you put your finish on after sanding, or when you just generated ships, like a little vacuum that's easy to move. Thumbs up. If it's battery operated, even better, but not a requirement. Regular shop vac will do you fine. Moving blankets. We use moving blankets all the time. We have a big stack of them behind me on top of the cabinets, and that's about half of our supply. They're so useful for deliveries. We use them in deliveries all the time, but more than that, let's just say you finish sanding something, you still have some more work to do where you've sanded one side, you need to flip it over and sand the other side. You can use pyramids, they leave marks. Blankets don't. You know, you can cover your work surface, or just after you've applied finish and you need to keep something safe in your shop for a little bit, you can lay them on this, or if you just have delicate things to work on. Or sometimes when I'm taking things apart that might have a lot of tiny pieces that's going to want to roll off a table, if you do it on a blanket, they don't roll away. So a supply of moving blankets, great thing to get. And also maybe another video that I know a lot of other people have done is good things about Harbor Freight. Just get these at Harbor Freight because you're going to ruin them anyway, so no need to spend a lot of money on them. Those are more than adequate. I should not have done that. Shop brush. As you can tell, we use shop brushes a lot. Again, Harbor Freight buy. I bought probably 4 or 5 of these. Another nifty thing is I super glued a magnet onto these, so that way I can smack them on the side of my tools. So I normally have one of these living on each machine. They're just so handy. You're always in a wood shop, at least if you're doing wood shoppy things, making dust, debris, etc. It's handy to be able to clean that off easily. Of course, it is always better to vacuum it than brush it because you're not stirring the dust in the air like you do with a brush, but still get a bunch of brushes. And with that, the magnets also came from Harbor Freight. I use magnets in the shop all over the place. I have a magnet on every machine, and snapped to that magnet is the little hex keys that go with it, or other little tools on my table saw. All my blades that I regularly swap through are on there. The tools I use to change the blades are held on there by magnets. So magnets, another good thing you need. Shop towels. Of course, I've got the blue towels. I prefer these over the white towels just because they tend to be a lot more lint free. And these are just the disposable, like whenever I'm wiping up stuff, you know, wherever you use a paper towel and you need to clean stuff up, those are great. A little pricier than that, but equally handy are some good lint-free cloths. These are really good for before your finish, between your finish, when you're sanding, doing your sand coats between finish applications and you need to dust it off. Little 50-50 mix, denatured alcohol and water, or for even applying some finishes. This is great, but yeah. There's a whole lot of times, well, mostly finish work, pretty much exclusively finish work is when I bring these out. But when you're doing finishes, some lint-free cloths are gold. Blue towels, handy always. Disposable, but it's the way things go sometimes. Getting to not disposable, these little silicone cups. Another thing I meant to grab is I have a bunch of little plastic containers that I get that are handy for mixing things in, but I do prefer these when they're adequate, and I'll have links to everything that we can get off Amazon down below for you guys. The nice thing about silicone is almost nothing sticks to it, so whenever I need to mix up a tiny bit of 2-to-1 epoxy or 5-minute epoxy, or I need to do just a tiny bit of finishing or some touch-up, I'll get my finish out, my epoxy, whatever it is, pour a little bit in this little thing, then get the brush or whatever I need, mix it up and use these. The nice thing is if you let it dry, you can normally just pop these inside out, wipe them off with a blue paper towel, it's not disposable, or slop sink, let them dry, and then they're ready to go, and you can use them over and over and over. So instead of generating a lot of plastic waste, just having a couple sizes of these little silicone bowls, super, super handy. Speaking of mixing things, sadly, these are disposable. I mean, you can reuse them depending on what you're doing. There's nothing stopping you from washing these out. But Total Boat supplies me with these, and I've even got some bigger ones. They didn't fit in here, but a variety of mixing cups. And what I like about these, though, that the little silicone ones don't have, are measurements, and especially ratioed measurements. So if I'm doing 3-to-1 or 2-to-1, 5-to-1, whatever it is I might need to mix up, these have ratios on it, but it also just has measurement marks. So if you need to do anything where you actually have to pay attention to how much of it you're mixing, or if you're doing custom mix colors, these are so handy, and having them in a variety of sizes and shapes is great. I use this for whenever I am mixing up my own little pigment colors and stuff. Having a short but wide one is great. Deep ones, you know, bigger's better for when you got to mix volumes of things. Anyway, I'm trying to find more things to say, but this is pretty self-explanatory. Buckets with measurements that you can mix in. You need them. With the mixing, popsicle sticks, man, or craft sticks. Normally, if you go to any craft store, they'll just call them craft sticks now instead of popsicle sticks. Whatever. I don't know if people stopped eating popsicles or something. But these are so stupid handy. Whenever I pull out those little silicone cups or the disposable ones and I need to mix something up, you know, this is what I use to mix up stuff, and also for applying it, for scooping the little mica pigment out of the little mica pigment bags and putting it in epoxy and stirring it in. The other thing I use these for a lot is as shims, because they're like about 1/16 of an inch. They break really easy, so whenever I need to shim things up a little bit, if say I'm using a planer sled or trying to level things, whenever we're doing the construction, it came in a lot, but making jigs, if you got to pad something out a little bit. Like I've done tapers on the table saw just by breaking these up, hot gluing them together, and hot gluing them to a piece of wood to push it out from the fence a little bit to cut taper on stuff. Like, it's one of those things that once you have them in the shop, you'll be amazed how many uses you find for them. And if you don't have super strong man hands like I do, you can cut them with your razor knife. I've got 3 right here, which is part of my point that you're going to lose and leave these around everywhere. I've probably got 3 more scattered around here, specifically the removable blade ones that just use these little box cutter blades are the best, because that way when they get dull, there's a good chance that you have a sharp side on the other side that you can just flip around, and you know, you don't have to worry about sharpening it. You can just throw that razor blade away, get a cheap pack of a bunch of them, and then swap them out as you need. All the times you'd use a knife for opening packages, which if you're woodshop, you're probably ordering supplies a lot, cutting banding off lumber, opening packages, cutting banding off lumber. I mean, that's what they do the most. But the other thing I really like about these razor blades is they make very excellent scrapers for cleaning things. Just you got a little gunk, you need to get off something, very cool. We need to make precise cuts. And there's no reason that instead of, you know, spending a few days making a super fancy marking knife or spending $30 on a marking knife, you can't just use a razor blade to make your little precise marks or to clean out bits or get in corners and scrape glue. I use these to scrape glue out of corners all the time too. Again, it's some box cutters and a bunch of razor blades for cleaning, scraping, cutting. Very handy. What else we got in here? Somewhat associated with the painting and marking. If you don't have these little paint keys, I want to say I have 5 of them. They used to all be together on a magnet on my tool wall, but in the move, I don't know where the rest of them went, and now I have one. I'm going to buy more just because it's so much easier to open a paint can with a paint can key than it is a chisel or a flathead screwdriver. And bonus, they don't demolish the lid when you use them. So next time you go buy paint, buy a couple of these and a magnet, slap them on a magnet somewhere, keep them with your paint supplies. Makes your life so much easier. Talking about paint supplies, freaking painter's tape. You use this stuff all the time. If you go back in my videos, you'll see all the stuff I use it for. One, it's great for what you'd expect, just regular masking. What we can also do is, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. CA glue is another great thing. But one of the great things, if you want to stick two things together and you don't want to destroy the finish or damage or have chip out or anything, you can put tape on one side, glue on the other, activator on the other, on a piece of tape on the other side, slap those together, and the tape and the glue is going to hold them together nice and strong. But the great thing is you can break the tape bond pretty easy. You just pull tape off both pieces. You have two clean pieces of stock that were held together while you need it and then released when you didn't need it anymore. It's great for securing things to the CNCs where you see it a lot, but it's also a handy trick for jigs. But speaking of masking, another thing I like to do is when you're marking out joinery, especially on dark woods where it's really hard to see your lines if you're using a pencil or something. A trick I've used a lot is put tape on whatever it is I need to do my layout on, using my little razor knife, make my marks, and then painter's tape comes away cleanly, and then I have a very distinct line of exactly wherever I want to make my cuts or cut to or whatever, because instead of looking for little pencil lines or tiny little scratches on a piece of wood, I've got tape, no tape, tape, you know, and then I know cut the tape or cut where there's no tape, whatever. It's a very high contrast marking. Believe it or not, another good use for painter's tape is as a light duty clamp. So if you have really thin pieces you're trying to glue up into a panel like veneer, oftentimes blue tape is just enough to hold that together. If you're making like picture frames and you have miters, this is good to do a lot of times when I've done turnings where I might have like pieces that are all angled and needs to come together. If I was trying to torque clamps down on those, they would just like start pushing themselves every which way because of the angles. What we can do is just lay out, this would be so much better if I had, you know, pieces to show you, lay out a piece of painter's tape, but all those right up against each other, and then when you roll it up, everything comes together nicely and the tape holds it in place just adequately until I'm probably going to go through this whole roll just talking about what you can do with it, until the glue dries, which is another thing that we'll do a video on later, which is how much clamping pressure is actually needed. As long as things are jointed well and you got adequate glue there, it's going to be just fine. So in those places where you can't figure out how to get your clamps, painter's tape is a great way to go to hold those things together until your glue can cure. And the advantage of using the painter's tape instead of like Gorilla tape or duct tape or whatever is this is made to remove cleanly without residue, so you won't have to worry about having a bunch of gunk on the wood you got to scrape off afterwards. And whether you like green tape, blue tape, or the tan garbage tape, whatever. And speaking of tape though, having electrical tape and duct tape and Gorilla tape or gaffer's tape, all the other tapes are good. Painter's tape I use the most, but you need tape. Everyone needs tape. Getting back to the CA glue. It's sticky, it dries, and it holds things together. I mean, don't know how much more to say about CA glue. I really like Starbond glue, been working with them for quite a while, and I have a discount code. There will be a link below to the code. Sometimes those codes changes, so I have a web page now on my website that gives you all the discount codes that I have active so you know you're getting a good code. The thing I like about CA glue is they have a variety of colors and they have a variety of thicknesses. So if you're working with, you know, walnut or something, they got a brown, that's a pretty nice match. They also have a black, which can be a nice accent color. And the reason that comes in is like, wait, normally you don't see glue. Correct, but what if you're doing like gap filling or crack filling or stuff like that? Or you have some joinery came together, but it didn't quite come together perfect, but it's strong, and instead of doing wood filler, you know, it might look fine with a faint little black line there to fill it up. Well, we got some black CA glue for you. And it comes in everywhere from like super thin to thick. I think there's even extra thick or a heavy thick for if you're trying to fill up knot holes and stuff. So whatever, you know, use you might need for your CA glue, from filling voids to just holding things together temporarily or permanently, there's the right size for you. And then when you pair that with an activator, a CA with an activator turns into a magical thing. If you've seen many of my project videos, almost every single one of them, I use CA glue and activator to hold things together, wherever I'm putting a template on a piece of board, or building a quick jig that's only going to be used a few times, or filling voids in wood, which I'll have a video coming out soon on lots of ways to deal with cracks and voids in wood. It's just super handy. Again, one of those things that once you have it in the shop, you'll be surprised how much you lean on it. Something truly piddly. lumber crayons. I mean, I don't even think these are $1 a piece. I've got black and red. I lost the yellow, but pick up a few different colors of these. These are really handy. What I use them for mostly is when I'm doing my rough breakdown and layout. So I've got a bunch of rough material. So if I just take a pencil to it, I'm probably going to break the lead. And if I don't, it's probably going to be hard to see that lead, especially if it's on a dark wood like walnut. But whenever I have the rough lumber and I've laid it all out and I'm trying to figure out, where to make my initial cuts to get my stocks from, I'll normally come in and use 2 colors. What I'll do, my first pass on all that lumber is normally with a red one, and I'll go mark all the defects. So any places like, oh, that's a crack I want to avoid, there's a knot, here's some splitting, and maybe it's on the other side. I'll check both sides of the wood, make all the marks on one side, and then I can come through, measure, know how much good wood I have, and use another color like black or yellow to then mark my rough cut lines. And then it's really easy. Just take that stack of wood, go to the miter saw or bring the jigsaw or circular saw and break it all down. But really, anytime you need to mark wood and you want it to be super visible, they're handy, and they wash off pretty easy. So not a big deal. So after all your cuts, if you need to label or number your pieces, lumber crayons are great for that. Speaking of marking, a variety of marking implements. Sharpies are fantastic. I use them a lot, or whatever, black marker you want. And actually, one tip I've heard that I haven't done is to get the silver markies. Silver Sharpies, they cost a little bit more, but they show up on metal and dark surfaces a lot better and don't wipe off as easy, I've heard. Because obviously I use this to mark on metal a lot, but it's really hard to see it on raw steel, but the silver stands out great and marks well. Carpenter's pencils are handy. The reason they're rectangular is so they don't roll away from you, which is often a very useful thing to have. Another thing is because they're flat, then you can use them to make offset lines really easy, so they're handy to have. But they tend to make really fat, ugly marks. Sometimes you need more precision, so some really high quality mechanical pencils are really nice to have. I got these off Amazon. I'll have a link below, and these are really nice. They're sturdy. I've broken so many of the cheap plastic mechanical pencils. I just got tired of it and spent a little bit of money to get some good pencils, and these they feel good. They're ergonomic. They're metal. They're solid. It's a pencil. I'm nerding out on a pencil, but they're good pencils. If you have been aggravated with cheap pencils, you'll understand what I mean. If you haven't, I don't understand you. You don't understand me. That's okay. The world's big enough for us both. Zip ties. They're not just fun in other places. They're so handy to have in the shop. I normally don't use these on a project per se, but just around the shop, they're awesome. If you see all my dust collection behind me, you might notice it's actually entirely suspended from screw eyes and zip ties. I just heavier zip ties than this, but it's all zip tied up. A lot of my cable management, where I have like the cords on my air filters up there, they're zip tied to the chains. So for cord management, hanging things, securing things, I've got some really big ratchet straps, and I keep zip ties in my truck too. So whenever I go get lumber and then I have to ratchet strap it down, a lot of times I end up with a lot of excess strap for my ratchet because I've got like 30-foot straps to use to secure equipment. I just keep some zip ties because instead of tying knots, if I'm going on a long trip and I don't want to worry about checking my knots and making sure that I don't have a tail flapping hitting other cars on the road, I'll just roll up that excess and zip tie it and know that it's going to be fine. And these are super cheap, so I really don't care if it costs me 3 cents to tie down a strap to not have to worry about it on a 1,000-mile road trip. Pretty handy thing to have. Again, it's one of those things. My philosophy is I hate needing something and not having it in the shop, especially if it's something that costs me less than $5. I'd rather just have them around so then when I need that thing, I can just grab it and I'm not at the time of going to the store and then forgetting to get it and then remembering and being aggravated because I didn't get it when I was at the store, and then going to the store the next time and forgetting again, and then just repeating that cycle. So there you go. Drop cloths, another very inexpensive purchase to go the disposable way. One of the things I'm going to do in the shop, I have a few, but I am going to invest soon in some big canvas cloths that will not be disposable so I can stop burning through all this plastic. But these are super handy. We use them all the time because we do a lot of spray finishing. I have a nice floor, so I try to protect my floor, and sometimes whenever we're spray finishing, it's hard to get away from other things in the shop, especially in my old shop, which was very cramped. So having the drop cloths was really handy because I could use those to cover my tools and machines and stuff, so I could spray in the only place that I could fit to spray, but without getting, you know, finish or whatever over everything else in my shop when I wasn't able to spray outside. I used to use my moving blankets for that sometimes, which is why a lot of them have paint on them. The problem is then your moving blankets aren't nice and clean and soft to lay those pristine sanded or finished parts on, because if you want to do that with it, it doesn't really help to have, you know, chunks of paint and finish and epoxy that's going to be scratching up the stuff you're trying to keep protected. But yeah, drop cloths, very handy. Either the disposable kind or invest in some nice heavy-duty canvas ones, just depending on what you're doing. But we go through these a lot. Last but not least, somewhat related to the vacuum. Again, I'm cheating a little bit. This is a nozzle for an air compressor to blow air. So while normally it's ideal to vacuum up any dust or particles you have off the pieces that you're working on, it's not always practical, or it doesn't get it all. It's not always the best. And like say when I sand and I'm working with an open grain wood, inevitably sand gets into those open grain pores, and I haven't run across a vacuum yet that adequately like gets them all out. But you come back with your little air duster, or you can use compressed air can, I guess, but again, permanent over disposable. You just, which is about the sound that it makes. I think that's a very good impression. And it blows all that dust right out. Or just, you know, cleaning things off. Having a way to blow air and suck air, you really need both. And you use it a lot in the shop, especially during finishing or just for cleaning. I know a lot of guys that actually clean their shop out with leaf blowers. So again, you know, another way of blowing air. So you really want both. Vacuum to be able to suck stuff up, some way to push air, be it a leaf blower or compressed air to clean stuff off, works great. Oh, I forgot to drop this on the floor like everything else. The box is empty. I think that's all I have. So I hope you learned something. Hope you'll take some of these might be handy to you. And if there's anything I missed you have in the shop that's kind of piddly that you wouldn't normally think of a shop thing that you use a lot and rely on, or is just really handy that you wouldn't think of, please share it below. I love hearing that kind of stuff. Anyway, I hope you learned something, were inspired, or at least entertained. And until next time, make time to make something. With the mixing.